Do you want to know my first job? Was working for my mother and daddy in the grocery store. My parents owned a neighborhood grocery store, and I can remember sacking potatoes. Potatoes used to come in a 100-pound bag, and so we would put them in brown paper bags that held somewhere between 8 and 10 pounds. And so they used to have me do that for them. And we placed them around the vegetable case, because the vegetable case you walked around. And so that's probably the first job I could remember. I'm sure I got paid something, but in today's terms, it probably wouldn't be very much. It could have been a nickel for all I know. Yes, I went to Marshall University. That's where I started college. I went there until 1952. And I came here because of working full-time. I came here as a sophomore, and when I came, they kept wanting me to stand on the top of the tables and sing Aggies, oh Aggies, and face a mountain. And I told them I was not a freshman, because that's what they used to do to all the freshmen. But I came as a sophomore. My mother, I think, used to program me, and she would tell me that when I would go to college for 2 years and get a secretarial degree, and then I could, you know, always be able to support myself. So I knew from the time I was a little bitty girl that I was going to go to college for 2 years. And that wasn't enough for me. I decided I had to have that degree. And after taking bookkeeping in high school, I really enjoyed it a lot. And I took accounting in college, thoroughly enjoyed it, even though Mr. Haight used to scare me to death. That I would have loved to have gotten a CPA degree, or a major in accounting to get my CPA, but it just took so much time to study for the classes. I really didn't have that available time. So I then decided I would get a business education degree, which was what I was pursuing when I realized I was going to get married, and that I better get the degree because I might not get that business education major. So that's the reason I finished in August, and I have my business degree. And it's a good thing I didn't get that business education degree, because you deal with teenagers. And I don't think that would have been a good fit for me. His senior year, I guess it would have been my senior year also, we had 2 classes together. And we didn't date until after that semester was over. And we had our first date on January the 15th, 1955. And October the 15th, 1955, we were married. And I had David for 24 years. I never worked at a paying job after we were married, except when I worked at the polls one time. I got paid for that. So I never had a paying job. And then I lost David in December of '79. And then my life changed a lot after that. I knew nothing about running the farm at all. And I literally was scared to death. I can't even begin to tell you how scared I was. And I didn't know what I needed to know. I didn't know the questions to ask. I didn't know anything. And I did, I guess for the first couple of years after David died, I'd never read a publication unless it was something connected with farming or pecans. I never read a novel. Every spare minute I had, I wanted to read to try to educate myself every way I could. Neighbors and friends tried to help me every way they could. I was very fortunate in that respect because my neighbor, Bill Stallman, offered help. and his foreman came over and helped my son so that he could learn what he needed to know on the farm, taught him Spanish. He speaks fluent Spanish. And so I was very, very fortunate in that respect. There wasn't a question that I had that Bill wouldn't answer. And if he didn't know, he'd tell me where I needed to go to find the answer. And it was wonderful to have that kind of help and support. And so I feel very, very fortunate. Everyone working together. Everyone having the same goal, if we want to use that word, to try to I always say the best job we can do, but we're always striving to do it better. What can we do that maybe we haven't done that we could do? Always looking for ways, always educating ourselves. We get a tremendous amount of publications concerning the nut industry, the pecan industry. There's lots of research going on. What can we do to do a better job here? And to me, that makes for success. But you all have to work together. And if there's a problem, let's talk about it. Let's not get upset about it and not let someone know. You can't solve it if you don't know about it. So you have to have good communication, but let's all work together to do the best job we can. I can remember, just selling a truckload of pecans was just, hard to conceive. When your trees just start producing, you just get these little handfuls and you think, oh wow, and then pretty soon you're dealing in truckloads, and then you're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds. And I never will forget the first time we reached 1 million pounds production. I even knew the hour that we did it. We were keeping that close tab on the production, and it's very exciting. It's very exciting. It's a tremendously exciting time of the year. Harvest is. It's exhausting, but it's a very exciting time because that's when you bring in your all the work that you've put in. You're now bringing in and going to get the rewards for that. At least you hope you're going to be rewarded. That's what you strive for, to be rewarded for all that work. I guess I have gotten so much, received so much, that if I can give a little bit back, I don't mind doing that. I don't mind doing that. I was at a Farm Bureau meeting today. I've been on that board, 10 years now. And they told me here several years ago that I was treasurer for life. And so I gave them my 2-year notice last year that I'm only going to stay with this one more year. They said, no, you're treasurer for life. But I don't mind stepping forward if I can be of some help. At one time I had a presidential appointment. That's when we had the National Marketing Agreement. I had a state appointment when I was on the Interstate Streams Commission. That was from Governor King. And then, of course, I had the county appointment. I'm on the County Planning and Zoning Commission. And so I feel very fortunate to have had those opportunities, but I don't mind giving back to my community. Take on every job that's offered to you. Don't be afraid of it. Don't say that's not in my job description. I mean, how are you going to learn if you close yourself off that way? I mean, I've irrigated on this farm. I've been in a ditch up to here in water trying to get a gate shut that there was a stick shut in. I finally got the stick out, they're stuck in, I finally got the stick out so I could shut the gate. But, I mean, don't be afraid of work. And it's all not going to be fun. Some of it's going to be a little bit tough sometimes. And don't be afraid of taking chances. You have to take chances. We all take risks. I think sometimes you can do a little research on some of the risks before you take them. So be a little careful on some of those those risks that you take. Farming is traditionally male-oriented, and lots of times people will call here right now and ask for Dave rather than for me, and that's okay too, because he's going to eventually be running it all anyway. But sometimes some of the men have a little trouble dealing with me, and I'm trying to think what special challenges were. Maybe I've put them all behind me and just kept going forward. I don't like to retreat, so lots of times I forget things that might be a little unpleasant. But I knew what I had to do, and I just kept doing it. And if someone didn't want to deal with me, well, then I would find someone else that did want to deal with me. And but most of the time, I didn't have any problem. Most of the time, I didn't. Sometimes, you know, we had heard that they gave us 2 years, and if we made it through the 2 years, we'd probably be able to make it. But I think a lot of people were watching to see if we were going to be able to hold on to it or not. I also heard the statement that a woman had never been successful in farming in the Mesilla Valley, and why did I think I could do that? And that probably was all the challenge I needed.
I was 10 years old, and I was in Goodland, and I was one of those boys that stood on the platform in the back of the milk wagon, and we delivered milk every morning to the front doorstep. You know, the old glass bottles and the little half-pint bottles and the half-and-half bottles and eggs, and so I was a runner back and forth between the truck delivering milk. I got up at 5:30 every morning and delivered milk every morning before I went to school. And then when we moved back to Durango, we lived up in North Durango, right up on Junction Creek at that time, and there was a little alfalfa farm close to us. And you know, back in those days, you didn't have balers and swathers and stuff like that. You usually cut your hay with a horse and a sickle and laid the alfalfa down flat. So you had to have somebody to go out and rake and put it in a stack so the men could come along and pick it up and throw it on the wagon and haul it into the barn. And so I worked all one summer there during the haying season. I'd go out in the field and shock those alfalfa shocks together. I was probably about 12 years old, and I got paid a silver dollar a day. And I always got paid in silver dollars. That was a marvelous thing about it. Every Saturday night I got $6 silver. You know? I lettered in football, basketball, and track. And my senior year, we really had some great athletes on our team. Roger Cox, maybe some of them know him. Roger was fullback on on our football team, and he was center on our basketball team. And that year we went in 8 games undefeated. We went 7 games, nobody scoring on us. So, and then we played Albuquerque High School for the Albuquerque Journal had arranged. At that time, there were no classes, no Class A, Double A, Quad A. Everybody was in the same class. And so the Journal had suggested a playoff, for the Tribune, one on between Albuquerque High School. And you know, at that time, there were only 2 high schools in Albuquerque, Albuquerque High School and St. Mary's. And so they flipped a coin, and we played Albuquerque High School up here at the Farmington football field for the mythical state championship. And it was rather strange in the fact that Albuquerque High School had about 2,500 students. Farmington had about 2,500 citizens. So but they did beat us. They beat us 21-7. I had several scholarships, you know, and of course I had a sister that was married that was going down to New Mexico State University. So my mother thought it would be a good idea that I took the scholarship down there so big sister could kind of look after me, and it turned out to be a wonderful experience. I have never regretted that. However, I only played football about 2 years down there, and moved in a new coach. I went down there and played under Von Corley. And then my sophomore year, at the end of that, they moved in a gentleman by the name of Coleman. I think he was from Midland, Texas. And he and I didn't see eye to eye, so that relationship didn't last too long. Yeah. Pretty independent, stubborn guy, I guess. Then I called old Dudley DeGroot, that was coach at UNM, because they'd offered me a scholarship. And I said, could you use me? And he said, well, you'll have to lay out a year. He said, come on up and I'll find you some job to do, and we'll get you tuition paid and put you in an athletic dorm. So I went up there for 1 semester, and after being at State, you know, I said, no, this university's not for me. So I went back down to New Mexico State and switched my major. You know, I started out in engineering, then I went to chemistry, and then I think it was the start of about my junior year, or maybe the 4th semester of my sophomore year, I had decided, well, chemistry doesn't sound too good. You know, we had those old wooden barracks down there in Las Cruces, and there was no air conditioning in it, and you'd spend all afternoon in the lab, you know, and you'd try to go out and get a little fresh air, but had your Bunsen burners going and no cooler going. And I said, you know, I don't think this life is for me. So I switched to business, and you know, it was an amazing thing. When I got into business, it was the first time in my life I felt right at home. I knew exactly that that's where I belong, and that's what I wanted to do. And so from then on, I applied myself, and I made very good grades from that day on. I've always been a very independent person. I guess I was just born that way, and I'm independent. And, you know, I've always said to myself, I didn't want to work for somebody else. I wanted to work for myself. And so the only job, I didn't have any money. The only job I could find where I could work for myself was the insurance business, because all I needed to get into it was a briefcase and a pencil and a piece of paper. And that's about all I had when I started into it. And so that's why I took that business, because I'm still my own boss, I'm still doing my own thing, and I live or die on the basis of my own ability, not somebody else's. See? And I've always wanted to do that way. You know, the one thing I have always done, and the reason for my business success, is that I've never been envious or jealous of people at all. I want to hire somebody better than I am. I really do. And you know, when you look at the world today and people in the world today, there aren't too many doers. You know what I mean? Every one of us have been in a position where we work with doers. No matter what you give them to do, they get the job done. And so what I have attempted to do in my business career is I have attempted to hire nothing but doers, and then to turn them loose so they can pursue their dreams, so they can do their thing. You know, I mentioned a while ago I'd sold all my insurance. I hired doers. Then I turned around and sold it to them. Those boys have made great money, I give them the opportunity. They prove themselves. Once they prove themselves, I sold the business to them. And so, when you look back on history, when you go back and look at the history, economic history of the United States, you were an agrarian economy. From agrarian economy, we moved into the Industrial Revolution, which really at that time